Hey, Eric Clay here with Own Your Future podcast. Today we're having on Collin. She's been in the real estate industry for 4 years now, but prior to real estate, she was on the mortgage side of the business. So we have a real estate agent with quite a bit of experience in the loans, which is sometimes unusual. So please welcome Collin.
Thank you, Eric. How are you?
Doing good, Collin. So give my viewers a little introduction to you and everything that you do.
Thank you, Eric, for having me on your call today. My name is Collin Marchand. I'm a real estate agent working out of the office in Barrington, and my company is Residential Properties, and it's been over business for over 40 years. So we're in a great spot in the East Bay. So I cover basically Rhode Island, East Bay, Warren, Tiverton, and also I do mostly in Providence, Rhode Island. We look at Warwick, Pawtucket, with the new outcomes of the new train station that just opened. So anybody looking to buy in that area, it's been a great outlook to look in those areas. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for coming. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Rhode Island housing market because I heard inventory is extremely limited in Rhode Island right now. Is that correct?
It has been limited in certain. It depends what you're looking for. If you're talking about single families, are we talking about multifamilies? Are we talking about condos and stuff? And it's been limited because you have to look back at 2020 when the market went with a lot of when the rates were low. So everybody was looking to buy and renters were moving out and trying to purchase homes. So that was limited, and most people were trying not to sell, and some were selling so I can be able to cash out. The reason being that is when you sell, where are you going? So people didn't really want to leave their homes, because then if you're going to buy another property, how much you're going to be able to pay. So that gave it imbalance of what is on the market right now. But the trend is coming back now because we are looking at the spring market now. So things are going to change a little bit. Just yesterday, like my phone keeps popping in. I received probably 30 text messages, with MLS, with the new listings. So we do have a couple of listings.
Great. You mentioned multifamilies. So a lot of people who I talk to are interested in Rhode Island. A lot of them seem to be interested in the multifamily market. Is the inventory tighter with the multifamilies versus the single families, or is it similar?
It's similar. Right now, today, we have about 115. We are talking about a price range of 6.5 million, where we are looking in Blockstone, and also you go down in West Warwick, the properties at 250. So we have about 115 right now, that multifamilies that are in the market. So it depends on, you're talking about price range, what we're looking for. And the startup price range for multifamilies with 3 families, we're looking at 550 for most buyers, and looking at that credit, 550 below to 350. So there's a couple of houses that we can be able to find. And now the trend is, it's affordability. How much are you paying for rent now when you're looking for multifamily, and how much are you looking to pay now for your mortgage? So those are the things where you come in, Eric Clay, into the bias. So the trend is really different. So it's a give and take, but there are houses now that are coming back. So by the next 2 weeks, we're going to see more houses back in the market, which is, the more sunshine we get, the more we start getting more listing, because everybody now, because the winter is very hard now. People don't really sell much in winter, because where are you moving to?
Yeah. Well, it feels like it's actually almost spring with the 60-degree weather we had the other day. It is. It went from -9 to 60. So that was kind of crazy.
It is.
So let's talk a little bit about first-time home buyers. So Rhode Island Housing obviously has that new grant that's $17,500. Are you hearing a lot of people reach out to you about that new grant that Rhode Island Housing's offering?
Yes, it is. Like, you see, last night when I went to the Super Bowl, I just walked in, and when I was like, Collin, I forgot that you're a real estate agent. So tell me about the $17,500. I'm looking for that. And the first question was asking me, am I paying that money back?
Yeah, it's great. It's actually free. It's free money, and there's no limit on how long you have to live in the property for. As long as you're buying a primary residence, you can get that $17,500. And, if you sell in a year, you're never paying that money back. So it's awesome. It's fantastic.
You see. But before that client went ahead, when they talked to me about, 2 years ago when they're still fixing their credit, so they had the $10,000. Remember the $10,000 they had? It's like, but that $10,000, you still have to pay $85 on that. So he was asking me those questions too. So Collin, 2 years ago when my credit was like 400, so now my credit is 600. So what am I getting? Am I getting 17,500 or am I getting 10,000? And also the 25,000. Remember, for the generational.
Yep.
So now we've got 3 that people are asking about.
Mm-hmm.
What are the difference?
And so the 10,000, I thought the 10,000 down payment assistance was fantastic, because that one, even though it does have to be paid back, it's 0%
Interest.
interest, and there's no monthly payments, and it just has to be paid back when you sell the property, pay off the loan, or when you refinance. So it's
Yeah,
that was a great program.
it is.
Now is
I've utilized it a lot.
Yeah. The 17.5 is first come, first serve. So, while it's here, and when it's gone, it's gone. And so that obviously, if you qualify, the the guidelines are pretty much the same. So if you're eligible for the 10K down payment assistance, then you're eligible for the grant. You can't combine either of them, so it's either or. So first come,
Okay.
first serve, and you get the 17.5. And then once that money's gone, we can go back to the we can go back down to the
So the
10,000
10,000
down
and
payment
the
assistance.
generational one too. But when talking about the 17,500, I know the limit score has been changed, because before with Roland Housing used to be 620 for the credit score. Now it's 640. So you want to
I
tell
want
me
to say
that,
it's
like,
660 right now. I think
yeah,
the credit.
660. Yes.
Yeah.
So you need somebody to be at what score when you pull that credit? You're talking about hard pull. That's the other thing that you do. So would you like them to be at 670?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say the initial poll usually doesn't hit you that much. It's usually if you have if you have another poll like a month or two later.
Okay.
So typically how credit polls work is if somebody, so when you do a mortgage credit poll, if you do another mortgage credit poll within 30 days, it doesn't affect your score. What will happen
Okay.
is if you do a credit poll after that 30-day mark, now all of a sudden you'll see a few drop some points on your credit score with a mortgage credit poll. And then typically you usually recover any hidden hit in your credit score. You usually recover in 2 and indefinitely 4 months. So with mortgages, I'm really only concerned about credit inquiries within the last 120 days. So I typically don't see, I mean, unless you have a ton, like a lot of them, if you have just a couple credit inquiries, but they're over 120 days old, I typically don't see them impacting your score as much. So usually you won't see that hit on your credit score until after that 30-day mark. And then if for some reason I pull it again, you'll get hit. But then you usually see that rebounded after 2 months. So once you have 2 months after that pull, your on-time payments usually counteract that. And then after 4 months, we have to pull a new credit report, and then you're seeing your credit inquiries. Yeah.
But for somebody who's under contract at that
And
point, so let's say you pull out 645.
but I usually tell, I mean, if I have so the issue that you would run into is like when your credit report is expiring. So like let's say I pulled your credit report in November, you get an accepted offer, and December, January, February, March. So your credit report would expire sometime in March, and let's say we're closing after your expiration date. I would have to pull a new credit report, and that would be within the 120 days. And so you might see a little. You could see. Depending on how your credit looks, you could see a little bump in your credit or reduction in your credit score, depending on what your circumstances are. But I typically tell people, even if you're slightly under 660, like let's say your credit score is at 650, I have the ability to do this thing called rapid rescore.
Okay.
And so what we do is we look at your credit. I see if there's anything short term we can do, like for example, paying down a credit card. Say you have a $500 limit and you have a $500 balance. If we pay down that $500 balance, that will typically improve your score. So in some cases, I can get somebody 10, 20, 30, 40 points by doing a rapid rescore. So even if you're slightly under the 660, we might be able to bump your score up and get you qualified for that. So if you're at a 640, I can always look to see if we can get you up to 660 in the short term. Can't always do it. Yeah, can't always do it, but
you can try.
I can typically. I tell people I can typically get a credit update within 5 to 10 business days of receiving the documentation.
Well, really? Okay.
Yeah. So
That sounds incredible.
Yeah. So what I do is I tell you what you need to do, and I tell you to get me the updated documents showing that that account has been paid or whatever you've done. You send it to me. I then submit it to the credit bureau, and then the credit bureau comes back to me in 5 to 10 business days and says, "Hey, this has been updated. You can repull your credit." Now, if you were to do that, it's going to take you like 30 or 40 or 60 days sometimes.
So we want to get going.
But I pay extra money to get them to do it quicker.
Oh, really? That come from the buyer, or it comes from you?
I actually can't charge the buyer for it, so
okay,
I have to eat it, basically.
Okay, which is good, because then not getting out of the subject, we do have a couple of buyers that are looking to, and they want to tap in the 17,500, before, because as you say, the money is limited. Before the money is limited, but that credit score is around 640. They need to up a lot, because some of these it's not like they don't have debt. They didn't have a lot of credit. They didn't have a lot of debt, so their credit's low. So they need to bump it up a little bit.
Yeah, there's about $30 million available, and so you're
Yes.
probably looking at about 1,700 people being able to take advantage of that.
How many people you think from that 30 million?
I would say 1,600, maybe, give or take.
Okay, so you're looking at an average price of 550 on a multifamily, because we're looking to 1 to 4 units. That's still a lot. Yeah.
It is
because you were looking at the average price of how much, in Rhode Island here, a multifamily in Pawtucket with 3 family and stuff like that, you're looking at 500 or 540, 550, So in Central Falls, because it's an upcoming area too. So we are looking at right now. So at some properties, they are 475, because I had a listing there. So, but now looking at the prices, it's going to be like probably 455. So if you're talking about 30 million average and dividing, which an average house, probably going to look at 450.
So it's 30 million divided by 17.5, and so that's how that's how it will help.
That's how they got the number.
About 1,700 people, give or take.
Okay.
And so it is first come, first serve. My imagination is, in my mind, I would say that the money's going to probably be used up quicker than probably Rhode Island housing anticipates. So I would tell people to kind of get on the bandwagon and try to get the money as quick as possible. I just did the mass housing. I did the mass housing grant. Now mass
the
housing.
One that you send me the information. I like that too at 50. So even though you're looking at certain areas,
but it's gone. It only lasted.
Gone?
It only lasted 2.5 months.
Really?
Yes. So the mass housing money only lasted 2.5 months. The Rhode Island housing money is going to last longer than that, but I would tell you to
jump on it.
Yeah, to jump on it. I was able to get 3 people that were able to use the mass housing money.
I know we did that program. I was trying to get the other one that you talked to, but when you are slow, sometimes we miss it, but we still have it on. So even if with the 17,500, not to discourage people and stuff like that, with 17,500, the 10,000 is still a great one too, because I'm very good actually when it comes into the closing costs. If you're looking at 10,000, because we also work on the seller concessions, you know. So try to cover up that with 7,500 or anything like that to offset from the buyer. So you still get about that 17.
Yeah. Are you seeing that you're able to get a lot more seller concessions accepted right now? So like during COVID, it was obviously a lot more difficult, but are you seeing sellers are back to being able to, or at least willing to cover some of the closing costs?
Oh, yes. I'm not trying to prompt myself on it. I'm very good. Every deal that I deal with multifamilies, I definitely do. I just did one right now that I closed last week. Sorry, because that deal didn't get to you, went to somebody else, because we had the buyer 2 years ago. So I was able to get 15,000.
Oh, wow.
Seller concession, which is one of the highest. That is actually 20,000, and it also factors, remember, seller concession factors too, when the appraisal comes in, how good the appraisal comes in at. So you have that gap in between. So we're able to cover that less 6% of that. So I was able to get 15,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
I just did another one 2 weeks ago too. I was able to get 8,000, and this was a single family. So the one for 15 was a multifamily. So it also depends when it comes to negotiation, how you be able to talk to and stuff like that. You didn't demand a lot of things. The appraisal came clean, the inspection came clean and stuff like that. So when you do, I always try to put that money up front anyway. So when I don't do the negotiations, So I always try to put the seller concession up front. So then you're open with the listing agent what your offer is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So so when a lot of people are trying to buy like 3 and 4 families, a lot of times they're trying to use FHA, and FHA can sometimes be a challenge to buy a 3 or 4 family because of their requirements that circle around the self-sufficiency rule when it comes to those. And so a lot of times what I love about Rhode Island housing is Rhode Island housing allows you to buy a 3 or 4 family, and you don't have to worry about the self-sufficiency test.
Exactly.
As long as you're not going with a government loan.
Yes.
And so in addition to that, Rhode Island, how Rhode Island housing is different than Mass housing is Rhode Island housing doesn't factor the rents into the income limit where Mass housing does. And so like a lot of times in Massachusetts, when somebody's trying to buy a multifamily, the rents can sometimes push them out of the income limit and they no longer qualify, which means that FHA sometimes for low down payment ends up being the only option. And in Rhode Island housing, since the rents aren't included in the income limit, it makes Rhode Island housing much more competitive when it on the 3 to 4 families. Do you see when you see people doing 3 or 4 family multi units, do you see a lot of sellers rejecting FHA financing, or what are you seeing on that end when it comes to financing?
Some of them actually. There's a couple of listings that I've been in the market for a while, and the listing agents with the sellers, they basically say it's conventional because they know that the property debt service and all this is not going to be able to work. So they typically put conventional buyers, but the properties have been sitting there so more than 60 days. So those are the other things that you need to look into and stuff like that. So they've been in the market for a long time. Unlike somebody who put a listing in and it's open, you just, you still do the FHA and both conventional, but you have to look at the numbers too. And I typically look at the rentals, how much they are before we can even put the property. I have a listing that's going to be coming up in North Providence that we probably will talk about so we can actually do an open house. So you have to look at how much the current rents are in those areas. And then also you look at.
Now, are you seeing rents increase quite a bit?
Oh yeah, right. Rents have gone up. Some of them.
We've seen rents.
Yeah, the rents are. I just had a buyer now, so his rent went at 11.49% up, and they're already at 26.
Oh wow,
$2,600 a month, and these are the lofts.
For how many bedrooms?
So, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths.
2,600 for a loft. Bedrooms?
Oh yes.
Oh, wow. Where is that? Is that in Providence?
Those rentals are up, and they want a 1-year lease. Yes.
Oh wow. I didn't realize it was that expensive in Providence.
I do have right now
That's
the
crazy.
property that I had too. Also, it's a 3 family, and we are talking about Central Falls. So 1,600 for 3 family. So these used to be 800, 900. So, but now we have a new train station coming up. So the price have changed. People from Boston have cut across to our side now. So those are things that have, try to put the impact on the rental markets to go up. So remember, the rentals are going up, and you know why? Because those properties 2 years ago, they were $350. Now we are looking at appraisals being at $550. So you give them a loan. You can't give them a loan at $350. You're giving them a loan at $550. They have to increase their rents. Because how are they going to pay your mortgage at $4,000? Like typically $105, $550.
Yeah, but
how much
you can
is the
only
mortgage
increase
at
rents if
$550?
there's demand. It's expensive,
There is
but
demand.
you can only increase the rents if there's demand, right? So there must be demand for the rentals. So is the rental market? Is there a lot of people looking for rentals in that area?
There's a lot of people looking in rentals. Remember, there's no more buildings, new construction. There's less construction. There are new constructions in North Providence, where there's a little bit of set of land in South Providence, but some of them there's no new constructions. So you have a new train station now coming in, which just opened now in Central Falls. I mean, where they're going to build new houses with space, and there's no open lots there. I mean, there are condos that are coming, but you're looking, I think there are about 26 new condos, so they're not like 100.
Crazy. Renters, you need to start buying. There's down payment assistance available.
Exactly. So when you talk about first-time home buyers with the multifamilies, that's the one that we're going to be talking about. His name is Michael. We're going to put him up through. So his rent right now is like, Collin, my property was sold. My rent is increasing from 1,300 to 1,800. So is that a mortgage payment? And how much is the house you're going to buy it for? So those are the questions that come in, and that's your call.
Yeah, and it depends on what they're comfortable with. I always tell people, you know, even if your mortgage is a little bit more expensive than what your rent would be, part of your mortgage payment is going to pay down the loan. And also, when I bought my first property in 2011, and at that time, my mortgage was much higher than what my rent was. I was renting with a friend, and so we were splitting. We were splitting the rent. My rent was super cheap because I was paying with somebody else, and then I went out and bought a place, and so I had a significant increase. And then fast forward, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later. Slowly but surely, there was just no way I could even come close to renting what my mortgage was. And so when you buy a place that other than maybe taxes and insurance, your monthly payment is fixed, and rents have been increasing at like 16, 17, 15%. It's crazy.
They're going up, and it's only 30, and it's only 1 year, so it doesn't guarantee you. It's standard of them is 10% every year, so you don't know what's going to happen after and stuff like that. So, and it depends what properties you're living. If you're living in Mills and everything like that, and area, you're in the East Bay. So when you're in East Bay, you're talking about Warren, you're talking about Tiverton, you're talking about Barrington. The rents for a single family, we're looking at $3,500.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Yeah, you might as well buy a house.
Where you are. Yes.
Yeah. I have a guy.
When you was in college, we used to, rent at $600. Now there's no such a thing.
Yeah.
So people are asking me the questions: are the rents going to go down? I just had a question now. So are the rents going to go down?
I don't know about that one. It just seems like the rents are going up. I mean,
yes.
I have a guy who his name was Mark, and he was renting from this lady for years, and she passed away, and now they're selling the place. The heirs are selling the place, and he has to be out. So in rentals, there's,
and he's been comfortable all these years because probably the owner didn't charge him a lot of money.
Probably, yeah.
Yes.
And so he's in for a little bit of a shock. I mean, he wants to buy a place. It's just tough for him to find something. But he's as a renter, you just don't have any control or stability in some cases, depending on who you're renting from. The owner might die, the owner might need to sell, rents might go up, who knows what happens. But I've heard a lot of horror stories where
exactly.
people just don't, they just lose control, and then they end up scrambling because they need to find a place, and they go out and try to find a rental, and they find out that if they want to rent something, it's like $600-700 more than what they're currently paying. So
sometimes when you talk about the rental increment, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you're a renter, this 17.5 free money, it's right down your alley. Collin's great at working with first-time home buyers. You actually have sent me a couple investors as well, but you do great. You do great with first-time home buyers. This Rhode Island housing program, she knows it. She works with it. It's absolutely fantastic. So now talking about investors, you obviously have worked with a few investors. What are you seeing on the investment side right now?
The investment side, because we're talking about, when you talk about units, I have 5 units that's going to be coming onto the market. So some investors, they are looking for 4 units and up. They look for 3 units, multifamilies and up, and 5, because they want to, maximize the rentals and everything. So with investment properties and stuff like that, because some of them, they're not owner occupying. So that means they're doing full investment for those 4 units and 5, because you should understand it as a buyer. So 1 to 4 units is residential. Any 5 units is commercial. So most of the investors now, they're looking at 4 units and 5.
Yep.
But for somebody with Rhode Island housing, first-time home buyers, they can do the 1 to 4 units up. So, but remember, if you do the 3 units and the 4, you have to find reserves too, money for reserves. So for most first-timers, I always try to do the 1 and 2 units.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier. Probably easier for a first-time home buyer to manage as well. So as a first-time home buyer, trying to manage 3 tenants might be a little bit of a challenge.
Exactly. And talking about maintenance and everything, because that's what you need to look into, and not only looking at the taxes. only, so, but it's doable at 17,500. I think we can try to get a couple of buyers in there
Perfect.
before we deplete the money.
So, Collin, if one of my viewers wants to take advantage of Rhode Island Housing's new grant and they want to reach out to you, how will they reach out to you?
First of all, it's easy. I'm more on social media too, that very much, and trying to educate the buyers on that first-time home buyer. But I'll definitely more than willing to share my direct cell phone number, so you can be able to reach out to me, which is area code, if you have a pen, 401-626-9750. My direct cell phone number is 401-626-9750. And I always say, introduce yourself. You can send me a text message, give me a call, or reach out to you directly, Eric. And I'm more than willing to be able to meet them, first-time home buyers, and educate them through the process, because I'm very good in educating them from one point A to B, because
Perfect.
I try not to get somebody underwater, because people say, what's going to happen if the market flips tomorrow, Collin? So if we don't overdo it and give you like a 4 units and 2 units, you can be doable. So basically, you're going to maintain only 1 unit, which will help you pay your mortgage.
Absolutely. Makes it easier.
Yes.
That's for sure.
It is.
Well, my viewers, if you're interested in taking advantage of that 17,500 grant and you're a first-time home buyer, Collin knows Rhode Island like the back of her hand, and she knows the Rhode Island housing program as well. So feel free to reach out to her. Collin, I want to thank you for coming, and everybody.
Thank you so much, Eric.
You're welcome. And everybody, please like, share, and subscribe so that other people get to see this podcast. Eric Clay from Own Your Future.
Thank you very much, Eric. We'll touch base and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you all.